Welcome to today's edition of Political Voice and Voice of the People TV. I am Masinachi Okafo. There's always a lot happening in the political space in Nigeria, but of course we have two stories on our radar that we are tracking today. First, Atiku Obi camps deny joint ticket talks. Reveal why ex-presidential candidates met. Plus, Northern youth groups barricade National Assembly over tax reform bill. And of course, we have our studio guest, in-house analyst and also a seasoned journalist, Mr. Dele Fanimo. And also joining us virtually is Dr. Joe Udaja, a respected political affairs commentator. But before we go right into you seeing our guests, let's take a global overview of happenings around the world. U.S. President-elect Donald Trump has issued a strong warning to Hamas demanding the immediate release of hostages held in Gaza. Trump, in a post on his Truth Social platform, stated that if the hostages were not freed before his inauguration on January 20th, 2025, the date that he will assume office as President of the United States, there will be all hell to pay in the Middle East and for those in charge who perpetrated atrocities against humanity. This marks Trump's most direct comments on the issue since his election in November. Trump's threats came just hours after Israel confirmed the death of Amar Nudra, a dual U.S. Israeli citizen whose remains are believed to still be in Gaza. Meanwhile, Hamas released a video of Adian Alexander, an Israeli soldier held hostage, urging Trump to secure the freedom of those captured. California's Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom has announced that he is seeking up to $25 million in additional funding for legal fights with the incoming administration of U.S. President-elect Donald Trump. The announcement came on the first day of a special season of the California legislative dedicated to preparing the liberal state for the second term of conservative Trump. If approved, the California Department of Justice and state agencies would get the extra funding for court battles in areas such as reproductive rights, environmental protection, and immigration. Governor Newsom wrote in the proposal that the new litigation fund will help safeguard critical funding for disaster relief, healthcare, and other vital services that millions of Californians depend on daily. South Africa will support Nigeria to become a member of the G20. President Cyril Ramaphosa said on Tuesday, that's today, during the official launch of the country's presidency of the G20 in Cape Town. This is the first time that an African country will lead a group of powerful nations on a yearly rotational basis. Ramaphosa said Nigeria will be keenly supported by his country, given that it has been a lone member of G20 and considering the need to raise the voice of Africa, which had been neglected. On Monday, Nigeria indicated its desire to join the group and sought South African support. According to media reports, Nigeria's Minister of State for Foreign Affairs, Bianca Odumebu Ojukwu, reportedly made the request during a ministerial session of the 11th Binational Commission between South Africa and Nigeria in Cape Town on Monday. South Africa officially assumed its presidency of the G20 on Sunday. Ramaphosa said his country's G20 presidency comes at a time when the world is facing severe challenges, including a worsening climate change crisis, conflicts, war, and geopolitical instability, which are causing further hardship and suffering. We'll now go on a short break, and when we return, we'll go straight into today's topic of discussion. Stay with us. Welcome back and thanks for staying tuned. Former Vice President Atiku Abubakar and Labour Party's Peter Obi have both denied rumors of a potential alliance of the 2027 presidential elections. Speculation arose after a breakfast meeting at Atiku's residence in Adamawa State gained attention on social media, with Atiku posting a video of the gathering. While some viewed this as a sign of a possible coalition among opposition figures, state spokesperson for both leaders clarified that the meeting was a friendly reunion rather than a political strategizing session. Atiku's spokesperson stated that Obi was invited as a keynote speaker for a university event celebrating the institution founded by Atiku, and Obi's aide reinforced that the meeting had no political implications. We have our studio guest and also our virtual guest, Dr. Joe Udadia and Mr. Dele Fanimo. Welcome to the show, Mr. Dele. And of course, Dr. Joe Udadia, I would ask you this question. We've heard a lot of rumors where we hear that Kwakwanso of Kano State, Peter Obi, Atiku Abubakar, and a lot of politicians that plan to merge come 2027. And now we are seeing this rumor also, which of course they have debunked, that it was just a friendly breakfast that they were having. But then I want to ask, do you actually see any form of coalition between Atiku Abubakar and Peter Obi come 2027?
Well, Obi and Atiku and to some extent Kwakwanso are in sort of disorganized limbo at the moment. And so even though this meeting was being denied as a political meeting, well, the fact is that, one, whenever politicians meet, that meeting is political. There's always some political message going on there. But it's beyond that. I think that Atiku and Obi in particular are looking to see what they can do because, like I said, they are in disarray. Obi does not have a home in terms of political party. He's out there in limbo. Atiku, the PDP, is just hanging. And so it makes sense that they meet. Now, how and what will happen remain to be seen in terms of what they might have discussed at this particular time or the discussion that they might have been having. But there's no doubt they need to do something because they failed woefully by going separate ways. And if they really want to have any chance or measurable chance in the next election, they better start talking.
Failed woefully by going separate ways, you say. How would you, what do you mean by failed woefully? Because we all know very well that Atiku is a force and Peter Obi is a force on its own. And so what do you mean when you said they failed woefully for going their different ways?
Well, look, I said it at the beginning, even before the election, that Obi going to Labour Party was a big mistake. If he wants a good political future, especially in last election. Having said that, if he has stayed in Labour Party, as he did, and continued to make it be a strong party, that would be a different story. On the part of PDP and Atiku, by Obi leaving, he left with some people to Labour Party, which hurt, many would say hurt Atiku in terms of PDP. So, going separate ways, they can do that. But right now, I do not see any of them as an independent party being strong enough to mount a strong campaign against APC, whether it is with Tinubu or not. Ideally, with Tinubu, it will be tougher. But APC is in a situation where, despite the problems in the country, they are in a situation where if things work out as they plan, it will be hard to beat them in 3 years.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Joe Udaja. Mr. Dele Fanimo, Do you agree? Do you share that thought that Obi and Atiku made a mistake by going their separate ways? That's first, and also we know very well that when Kwankwaso was in the play, that he mentioned that he would rather have Obi assist him as his vice than having him assist Obi. And a lot of people were like, oh yeah, so that means you guys are not for the benefit of Nigerians, but for your own personal interest. How do you react to that?
Thank you. The first thing you have to realize is that when you have somebody holding that ace as the incumbent in an election, he has the state resources, he has the manpower within the state or even at presidential level, he has all the resources, both human and material, to go into that election. So to that extent, he has an edge over you. And then you are fragmented into camps, fighting a behemoth that is strong. You will end up dissipating energies in such a way that that incumbent person, either as governor or president, needs just a fraction of the vote. It doesn't need to have like 60-70%. He could have 40% and he will win.
But we had a different case when it came to Edo State election. It was a different ballgame altogether.
You see, it was an internal thing in Edo that some people felt, within the party, within PDP, that Obaseki cannot bring a successor. And it defied them, and they waited for the election. There are so many things that came up. But in the case of Peter Obi, Atiku, and Tinubu, look at, let's even do a strong analysis. The enclave of PDP in the South, up until 2023 election, was Southeast and South-South. And so, you imagine if there was a ticket of Obi and probably a Northerner.
Okay.
The PDP would have a stronghold in South-South and Southeast, which is about 11 states. At worst case scenario, maybe they could lose like maybe 2 or 3 out of this 11. So ultimately, you have about 8 states in the kitty. And then with Obi's showing in the Southwest, the problem would have the way he won Lagos, and he could have won maybe another PDP state like Oyo or Osun. That gives him 2 or 3 plus 8, that is 11 in the South alone. Now, his candidate in the North will also make good showing. And there are some states in the North that are predominantly PDP states. So, technically, that ticket of Obi and one other now would have won about, out of 19 states, would have won about 10 states.
But Obi had a ticket with a Northerner, his vice, during the presidential election.
That's a non-starter.
A non-starter.
Yes, in the political equation of the North, is a non-starter. And so it's not going to get anything. It's from the minority in the Niger state. And so it's not likely to get that maximum attention. Now, but because they are fragmented, even in Lagos, Tinubu lost. PDP was struggling, and the bulk of the vote that comes to the North is in Kano. Because Kwankwaso had left PDP, he had a strong showing in Kano. Kano delivers between 2.8 and 3 million votes. Now, so when you look at that, if there was a coalition at that time, that 3 million votes would have gone to PDP. And then by now, we'll be having somebody else. in government. And that is why that becomes instructive against the backdrop of the next election. If what they are talking about, which the people still consider as rumor, if it doesn't materialize and PDP goes its separate way, and Peter Obi goes Labour Party, and maybe Kwakwaso remains NNPP, Tinubu will come back.
Okay, so does it mean you share the thought that Peter Obi would have stayed back in PDP?
No, at that time, the frenzy, the movement was enough for Peter Obi to branch off and test his popularity. The only snag in the campaign of a build-up of Peter Obi was that, one, there was no much showing in the north for Peter Obi. Okay. There was no much showing in the north. And because he came into the race a little bit late, so what he would have done to attract the attention of the north, you remember there were some people that were saying that when they mentioned his name, it sounded like that Nollywood actor, that they didn't know that, you know. So that shows you that his showing in the north would have been stronger, you know, if he had come early into the race, and he would have had some pockets of good showing in the north. Then the Christian-Muslim factor also played itself out. Most Christians were behind Peter Obi, and the Muslims felt, okay, if you guys feel that because of religion you want to bring a president, okay, we'll show you at the polls. And the Northerners, some of them voted on the line of religion. So that was what played out. Otherwise, if Peter Obi had a very strong, you imagine Peter Obi picking somebody like Zulum as his running mate in the north. Zulum would have delivered about 4 states, particularly in the northeast. What did this man deliver? Nothing for Peter Obi. He's a non-starter. When did he join politics? Somebody who won a senatorial ticket and it was taken away from him in the court. So if we are going into this next election, if opposition is very serious, there must be a convergence. There must be a strong synergy, and they must come together. That is the only way they can fight APC in the next election. The moment you see, mark my word, the moment you see 2 or more parties bringing presidential tickets, don't bank on anything. Tinubu will come back.
All right. You talked about having the convergence of strong opponents. So, Dr. Joe Udaja, what do you think? What are the persons or the people you think should actually converge, should merge together to see that they form a strong force come 2027?
They really don't have much choice. They have to come together if they want to defeat or even come close to defeating APC at this point. You see, what people don't understand, or many people don't understand, sorry, is that despite the hunger, despite the complaint, despite the challenges, most Nigerians, just like most people in the world, know that what APC is doing will help the country. What does that mean? When you go around and all you say is, oh, APC, this is horrible, you are destroying the country. Basically, you are joining the choir. The choir doesn't sing for everybody. It sings for that particular church, okay? So I think that if I were to advise Peter Obi, Atiku, Kwakwanso, or any other party at this point, I would say, look, you can play the politics in terms of going against anything that APC is doing. But you better get your act together, because right now, all that people see in you are disorganized parties. And when the parties are when the party call disorganized, you are the head, bears the brunt of it. You must come together, or if you're going to go separate ways, then you better start now like Obi. I said it many times before. Obi needed to get Labour Party together and be seen as the leader, not leader on paper, but leader that actually work within the party to say, look, we are in this together and we want to move on. I don't know if he can do that at this point. So the alternative would be to work with Atiku and Kwakwanso to say, we are all in this together in terms of looking for how to beat APC. And it's either we do it together or we might as well just wait for the inauguration day in 2028 or late 2027. I think they should do that. They should drop individual differences. They should drop individual feelings. And also, especially Obi and Atiku must accept the fact that they lost and let the people, the country know that. Right now, a lot of people still feel insulted, in fact, for both of these gentlemen not accepting that they lost the election. So I think they need a lot of work to do. Nigerians are not as naive politically as many people think. They have other problems that I have talked about, but Nigerians are not really as naive. And the people in the North will continue to play an important role, the key role. One, they have majority. Two, they are probably more politically savvy than the rest of the country, even though many people may not see that because they don't talk a whole lot. So I think that these are issues they need to sit down, iron out, and then move on.
All right, you talked about two things. You said the first one, they should drop their individual differences. And then he also mentioned about, but then seeing the crisis in Labour Party, you said you don't know if he would be able to, put his house together, that is Labour Party. Would you still advise Peter Obi to run with Labour Party or to defect to another party? And then also, knowing fully well that these men are a great force, no doubt, do you think that any one of them would actually bird to assist and not to be like the lead presidential candidate, which is, of course, obviously what we're looking at here, because Atiku wants to be the head, Peter Obi wants to be the head, Kwakwanso wants to be the head. So do you think that at any point in time that they may actually, drop those differences? And seeing the crisis in Labour Party, do you think Peter Obi should still continue with Labour Party or defect to another party entirely?
Well, one of the things about politics is that some people allow the ego to come in. I don't know if at this point, let me talk about Kwakwanso first. I think Kwakwanso is in a situation where he can actually work with any of them. I think his case, he knows, even though the Kano area may be his stronghold and a few other areas, he knows that he has not established the name and the credibility that will allow him go outside of those areas and make major impact. He has done that by being governor, but it's not enough in terms of do people really know him. Atiku has established himself right from time, having been vice president and other areas. Obi has not done that, but he has done it through his popularity. He did bring popularity to Atiku, to a PDP, and the popularity actually became more as Labour Party. What he did not do, though, and again, I said it at the time, there was not much background work there was not much foundation. The question is, has that foundation been built within Labour Party? Many people will say no. Rather, Labour Party has actually become more disorganized. So I think he has to make the decision that either he wants to stay in Labour Party and walk through the ups and downs there to get his ready, or he goes to PDP, and he better be ready, because I can see people saying, you went from PDP, first of all, you were Apuga, to PDP, to Labour, to PDP, where are you? That would be a great campaign attack, if you will. Now, Atiku, I do not see any sign from Atiku that he's going to say, look, I've done what I needed to do. Two of you can go for it, and I will just stay. I think Atiku believes that he is destined to be president of Nigeria. Now, that may be just his wishes or his goal, nothing wrong with that. But the point is, if he wants to stay as the nominee, then Obi will just have to decide to either be vice president again and work hard, and then hope that Atiku will probably serve 1 year, one term, and he may then become the nominee, depending on what happens. Or like I said, he can say, you know what, I've tried it, I want to go back to Labour Party and build it. He has to make that decision, and he has to have a good team that will not look at emotions and sentiments. You know, emotions and sentiments carried him a lot, but those have waned, those have decreased, and many Nigerians have sat back and looked at things, and I bet you today those sentiments and emotions will not be on his side, especially in the West, in the North. He will probably remain in the East, the Southeast, but that will not be enough.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Joe Udaja. Mr. Fanimo, before we wrap up this particular segment, a lot of a school of opinion are of the opinion that Atiku should now be an elder statesman, that he should just drop everything and focus on allowing people, others, to run this race and possibly aid or help them to for the betterment of Nigeria. Do you share that thought?
Well, Atiku is taking a cue from the former President Buhari. Buhari contested 4 times before he got to the presidency. And Atiku has also contested about 4 times. So, but Atiku couldn't get there. So he feels that, okay, if Buhari could get there at his fourth attempt, he could also get there at his 5th attempt. So to that extent, he would, but I don't see an Atiku giving up in 2007 at 27. He will want to contest because he feels it is his birthright to become the president of Nigeria, and that will be the undoing of the coalition, because he has a very deep war chest. Remove Atiku from PDP and the counter-carrots Wike. I don't see anybody that has that deep pocket to really venture into contesting with an incumbent that is equally huge in terms of war chest. So he will want to contest. And perhaps if reason prevails and he decides not to contest, it would have been a very beautiful idea for the opposition, because he's the only one that is standing in the gap and ensuring that he has that colossal stature to muzzle anybody around him. He comes in towards the primary of an election and he grabs the ticket miraculously. Even the last one, it was against consensus that it should be rotated to the south. And that was what angered the likes of Wike, that has become the albatross of the party till today. So, but by and large, Atiku has his structures still in Nigeria, and he has his media office still activated. that kind of thing does not suggest that Atiku would not want to run in the next election. And it's going to be quite unfortunate because it will dissipate all the votes, and it will be scattered to the point that a Tinubu as incumbent president may not need more than 45% of the votes to become the president again. And that would be quite unfortunate. We have seen it happen in some governorship elections.
Yeah.
You know, so.
All right, moving on to the next topic of the discussion this evening. Youths from 19 northern states staged a protest at the National Assembly today, being Tuesday, 3rd of December, 2024, in support of Deputy Senate President Barrow Jibril. The protest was sparked by criticism of Jibril over the tax reform bill, which he presided over in November. The protesting youth described Jibril as the Sardauna of our era, and he hailed him as the best senator in the North due to his sponsorship of the Northwest Development Commission bill. However, not everyone shares the same sentiment. The tax reform bills have faced widespread opposition from various quarters, including governors, traditional rulers, and civil society organizations. But despite this, the National Assembly is set to, pass this bill with the chairman of the Senate Committee on Ecology and Climate Change, Senator Sarah K. Dixon, stating that the bills aim to bolster Nigeria's fiscal institutions and align with the government's development objectives. And of course, our guests are still here. But I'll start off with Dr. Joe Udadia. We've had a lot of debates, a lot of confusions, a lot of criticism that surrounds this tax reform bill, which we've had the likes of northern leaders, the likes of the South leaders, a lot of senators, a lot of people have talked about this tax reform bill. But I wanted to give us, to tell us what you feel about this and your reaction on tax reform bill.
There seem to be two views on what the youths were talking. The Politics Nigeria reported it differently from how the Vanguard reported it. Nonetheless, I think the key message there is that these northern youth groups are not happy with the tax reform. And they are not alone. There are quite a number of groups or individuals in Nigeria that are not happy with the tax reform. And in this case, the northern youths are saying, through their senator, whom they love, obviously, calling him Sardauna of their time, which is pretty good honor for them to use such a phrase to describe him. Now they feel disappointed that he is not fighting for them. This is one example of what I've been talking about in Nigeria, and that is we do not educate our people very well. You see, we ask them to go get degree, but we don't educate them. Degree in and of itself is not a sign that somebody is educated. What is lacking is the education that public needs, public education. Some people call it common sense education, but it's beyond that. Why am I saying that? It seems to me that the youth are saying, you have not even told us much about this reform bill. We don't know what it will do. All we know is that it will hurt us. Well, I think they are right in that way. I don't think the tax reform will hurt them per se. But I do agree with them that they have not received good explanation of what this bill will do. Whenever you take something away or put something new, it would disorganize people. I don't care whether you think those things are good. Unfortunately, Nigerians in general are not good in doing that. And always ask this question, why? Well, you can even go back and look at your own families. How much do your parents inform you of changes? How much do schools inform you of changes? So in my opinion, Nigeria is overdue for tax reform, for sure. And when you read the things that the federal government stipulates as the benefits, they sound good. Of course, it remains to be seen. So I do believe that the senators rushed through this in good faith. However, they missed that critical fact, and that is when the public is not educated on what you are doing, it may well be good, but they will push back. And the northern goose, knowing what is at stake, because it impacts them a lot, is fighting it. And in that case, I support them. Again, I support them in saying, you need to explain to us what is going on before you go further. I don't support saying there shouldn't be any change, because there has to be changes. If Nigeria wants to move up, they must look at their tax system and see what changes that needs to be made.
All right, thanks so much, Dr. Joe Udaja. Mr. Fanimo, a lot of people are of the opinion that one of the reasons why the tax reform bill has caused a lot of arguments, a lot of disagreement, and a lot of criticism is because of what happened during the time that the fuel subsidy was removed. So Nigerians are saying that they do not trust this government because when the fuel subsidy was removed, it was promised that, yeah, the money gotten from the removal of the fuel subsidy was going to be used to do something great for Nigeria, which we came out and then it was said, oh yeah, there's no subsidy removal. Oh yeah, we're still paying a little subsidy. Like a lot of confusion came up, and then Nigerians are saying that, yeah, the tax reform might be a good thing for Nigerians, but then their main issue is the trust that they do not have for this administration. How do you react to that?
You see, there are two issues to your question. Is the bill justifiable, and to what end is the accrual going to be deployed? From the content of that bill, I mean those bills, I think 4 of them, on paper, I consider it very appropriate at this time of our economic restructuring. Because there is nowhere in the world where fat cats don't pay tax. The tax regime is only meant for the downtrodden masses. And what this bill seeks to achieve is to ensure that people that have big chests should be taxed accordingly. And those who are just struggling, that imagine somebody earning less than 1 million naira, and you want to place tax on that person, it's one burden too many. So, and this is what one of the bills tries to achieve. Then the second one is the VAT, the deployment of VAT proceeds. Now, it's going to be like, what you bring is what you get. Unlike before, when some states would just sit by and even antagonize some of the items, some of the goods, some of the products that bring VAT, and yet they are not averse to taking money accruing from VAT tax. So for me, to that extent, I applaud those bills. Now to the question of how are they going to deploy what the proceeds of these taxes. You see, for evil to thrive is for the good people to keep quiet. Part of why the new tax reform should bring about prosperity, development, and growth is what we are discussing here. People should be aware. People should ask questions. Where is this money going to? What are they doing with this money? The focus up until now is federal government, federal government. No. Today, VAT, the entire money that comes from VAT, 60% goes to the state that generates this money. And then the 40, the state would also benefit. Because when they pull the 40 back to federal government purse, then the federal government takes just lower than before, 10% instead of 15% that they used to take. And I think federal government, states take about, I think, 55%. And then local government, 35%. So the question is, why are we focusing more on 10% of the federal government? And we're not looking at states and local government. We're not asking them questions. So there has been this moment of respite for states and local government chairmen and governors. Whereas the bulk of the money, today, there is no state government that earns less than 8 to 10 billion monthly. You know? Yeah. And we don't get, and the salary and emolument may not take more than maybe 5. What are they doing with the rest 5? What are they doing with IGR in the different states? What are they doing to IGR in the local governments? Some local governments are richer in IGR than some states. A local government like Isolo, Oshodi local government, what it will generate in a month, a state like Ekiti will not generate it in 3 months. What are they doing with this money? Yet, we still experience bad roads. We still experience primary health care that is near comatose at the local government level. So what are they doing with the money? People should begin to ask questions.
But people ask questions.
How do you ask questions?
Well, don't you think that the way we have the National Orientation Agency, prepping people, telling people, explaining to people, enlightening people on most of.
To what extent have you? Can you on a scale of 10, you can't give Noah 3. You'll be too generous if you give them 3. If you want me to score them, I'll score them 1 on the scale of 10.
Oh, really?
Yes. Show me their presence anywhere. Apart from occasional, don't deface the national flag. If you do this, we will do this. What else? You're not talking about education. You're not talking about health. You're not talking of anything. Even corruption. What has Noah pushed out in terms of jingles, in terms of adverts, to dissuade people from being corrupt? What about our lost values? What has NOA done to restore our lost values? So we should begin to challenge some of these people. And how do you do it? You form a coalition and have a CSO. It is not all the CSOs, civil society organizations, that should be national in outlook. You can form CSO, name it, register it within the local government, and then use that vehicle as instrument of challenging the local government chairman. And you begin to push the narratives around the local government. What about states? Do you know that some states, indigenous of those states and those living there, they hardly question their governors? You see a state road, an average Nigerian does not know that there are 3 different roads within a state. You have the federal highway, you have the state roads, and local government roads. How can you be asking Tinubu to come and fix a road that leads to the farm? That ordinarily should be the responsibility of the local government. How do you expect a state government to fix Lagos-Ibadan Express Road? But many people don't know. Road is road. People don't know that primary health care is local government takes responsibility for primary health care in Nigeria. But when you go to a dispensary or health center in your local government, the question you ask is, what is this governor doing? So we need broader enlightenment that would effectively arm an average Nigerian to ask questions, to know where to direct his questions. For instance, when people were complaining that end bad governance, end this, end that, I challenged them. You should have gone to the National Assembly where laws are skewed in favor of the elite against the masses, where national resource that belongs to each state is now being said it's on an exclusive list. Why don't you go back to that National Assembly and sit tight there without holding ordinary stick and say, until you amend this law that gives exclusive right to the bitumen, the coal, the gold that resides in my backyard. Let my state governor exploit this for the benefit of my state, and let's see how we will not question that state governor. But we are not doing all that. So we misplace our priorities, and out of lack of knowledge, we also misdirect our questions, and that's why most times we don't even get answers.
That's why we don't get answers, you say. Dr. Joe Dada, before we get your concluding thoughts on both topics, I want to know how might the passage of this tax reform bill influence 2027 presidential election and, of course, generally political landscape in Nigeria?
Well, I think that the youth are showing that they are tired of the status quo. Unfortunately, they are doing it by groups, by tribes, by localities, which means that their impact will be diluted quickly. You know, what my colleague is saying is true in terms of we are not really following the path that we should. In other words, we talk about government this, government that. Well, I ask the same question with my friends here. Who is the government? The government is really you, the people. But you see, in Nigeria and many other African countries, the people see the government as this virtual being that is there. And the people that represent them are people that are blessed by some God to be there. Instead of seeing them as people that truly represent them, which means they represent their interests, their needs and wants. And so when there are questions, they should go to them. It's not an easy thing because you take, for example, when you say that every election that you lost is rigged, which means you don't believe in the very system you represent. It sends a horrible signal to the people to not trust you. When you say that, well, this person is doing it because from the north, from the south, from the east, and so on, you are saying the very system that represents you is not for you. So there's a lot of education. I think Nigeria needs more public education on the impact of these things than really the effort they put in degree. Look, I am an academia by training, academician, and I understand the value of education, formal education, and it should be there. But it must be accompanied with public education. Otherwise, that education becomes diluted. And that's what is happening in Nigeria. So Nigerians need to ask questions. They need to be able to come out, go to their local government area, go to the state governors, and ask the right question. Those two areas control over 90% of what impacts average Nigeria. But they don't know that. They look at the federal government as the arbiter. It is not so. Politics is all local. So again, I like what the youth are doing, and I will encourage them to continue, but to broaden it, not just as it helps the North. Because I saw a statement that says, you are not following the tradition of the North, something like that. I don't like that. I like this youth to say, this is not what we want to see in the nation. Yes, it may affect us more, but we want you to look at what is good for the nation and the people. If they could do that,
Yeah.
I think they will have a greater impact towards 2027. And these candidates should listen to them.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Joe Udaja. Mr. Dele Fanimo, let's have your concluding thoughts, please.
We need to just hold our leaders to account, and they should show some level of responsibility in taking care of us. Then the political gladiators should come together if they want to fight a good fight. If they don't want their nose to be bloodied in the 2027 election, they shouldn't come to the ring fragmented.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Dele Fanimo, for being on the show with us today.
It's always my pleasure.
We appreciate you. Dr. Joe Udaja, we appreciate you for being on the show with us today as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a great day or evening.
And you too. And this is all we can take on Political Voice for today. Political Voice will make a return tomorrow. I am Amasinachi Okafo. Have a good evening.